Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our annual JAB meeting. It's a great time to hear what's going on in our schools and learn how we as a board can support the incredibly important work you're doing every day. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to start tonight with ACCS, and maybe you can tell us what that acronym means nowadays, formerly ATI. Welcome. Yeah, great.
Is that working? ACCS stands for Armadillo Community Charter School. We changed the name so that it fits our mission and it values a little bit more. Also, so we can get the charter into our name so that when we go out into the community, they know what we are just by knowing our name. We kept the armadillo though, because when we were putting out to our kiddos a possible name change, we gave them about 3 different options. And one of ours started a Save the Armadillo Facebook page. So we decided that armadillo needed to remain in the name. And so our board put together all their heads and we came up with the parts that we thought was most important. All right. Oh, hello. Okay. All right. All right. So I just forgive me if I do anything crazy, but went off of what I have from the last few years from summer that I took over from. So we'll see what I do. All right. So this is just the last 3 years that we have come up with. Currently, we have 74 students, which is actually higher than what we normally have in November. So we're really happy about that and hoping that it remains or goes up, especially with our new beautiful facelift that we got on campus. This year we also added some teaching staff and have 2 part-time directors helping with the transition and me taking over, which has been ridiculously helpful having someone help me take over this position as a newbie. Other way? There. Whoop, 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 whoop. I got it. All right. So last year's armadillos, I just want to give you some of our stats. So as you know, we have a different population than a lot of the schools in our district, and those are the kiddos that we love and the ones that we really want to hang on to. So 54% of our kiddos from last year said that they had a medical condition, including mental health conditions that really do make it hard for them to come to school, which is one of the reasons that we made sure La Clinica stays on our campus, not only built them a new health clinic, but also a facility for our mental health to be on campus with us. We were at 97% of our students economically disadvantaged last year. And we had a 30% of experiencing homelessness and 32% of them were working full or part-time. So we really need to make sure that we're keeping those transition schedules available and those flexible schedules that aren't really available in a lot of the public school systems. These are our kiddos this year. We had 67 self-reporting on their October survey that they were at least 1 year behind in credits before enrolling with us. And their average time out of school, 30% of them were out of school 6 months or more before coming to us. So that contributes to being behind in credits. And then we have to not only catch them up in credits, but get them back into coming to school. 25% of our population has an IEP and or a 504 plan. So that really helps with our small class sizes and keeping our classes small so that we can work one-on-one with those kids. On that note though, less than 2 years at ACC, 88% of our kiddos come to us for less than 2 years. And 55% of those are juniors and seniors. That's why we have them for less than 2 years. But we get them for a very short period of time. And so it's hard to work, but we get it done. So that goes into our attendance. Yes, our goal is 70% regular attenders by June of 2022, and we're going to try and keep that goal going and get up to that 70% attendance rate. But as you saw, with 88% only being with us for 2 years, being out of school for 6+ months before they come to us, we're working a lot of factors that are against us to try and get them to come. But we do have 31.4% of regular attenders in 22-23. We have some flexible programs that we are running this year to try and get those going. 71% of the students this year did self-report that they have a mental health condition that makes it hard for them to come to school. Our ninth grade on track. We do not have a lot of ninth graders come to us. As you see, in 2020 to 2021, we only had one, but woo, we kept them on track. Go us. And last year we had 6 out of our 7 ninth grade on track, 85.7%. So we're doing good. We looked at some of the areas that we need to improve in, which is those self-management skills, which, like I said, are kind of hard when you only have them for a short period of time. But when we have so much wraparound service on campus and one-to-one experience for our kids, that's how we're going to get that done. Our graduation rates, we did pretty good last year. I'm pretty proud of these. We had 74% graduating at 4-year, and then 88% graduating at 5-year or with a GED. All right, some things that you might not know for our year. We just got approved as an Aspire site. So excited to have Aspire. That means that we get training and resources and funding and all this amazingness to have one-on-one community mentors come in and get kids to apply for FAFSA, get them trades, get them moving out into the community, get the community to come into our school. Hence the community in our name. Armadillo, we just, in our remodel, we kept our on-site laundry facilities. And we also built an ADA shower service. So we have kiddos that don't have running water at home or are experiencing homelessness. They can now come on campus, do laundry, take a shower, and get some clothing and home resources out of our fresh. That is all free to them. Actually had a kiddo just use our laundry for the first time today. It was lovely. Armadillo is still partnering with Project Youth Plus to remove our barriers to education. And we just had an amazing service come today from Project Youth Plus. We had a budgeting 101 come on campus and give all of our seniors a discussion on bank accounts and debt and why not to open a credit card until you're really ready. It was great. A lot of them had no idea what a bank account was or why they would be doing anything with that. And so that was really interesting to watch. One thing that I am so proud of is this October, our students were polled and 100% of them stated that they feel safe on our Armadillo campus. All right, and then we're just gonna keep going to reach these goals. We are embracing project-based learning to up student engagement. We're using a lot of integrated curriculums and thematic learning, so we're kind of tricking our kiddos into thinking that they're not learning, but they are. And like even today, we had math go outside and they were learning about angles and they built paper airplanes and measured the angles and then went outside to play with them. They didn't think they were learning, but they were. We are also brushing up on our restorative practices. Every single staff member on our campus now is trained in positive discipline. And so we will be continuing to implement that and fully implement it in the next 5 years. We are also slowly switching over to rubrics and proficiency grading. It is a slow process, not only for students and staff, but the families as well. So we want to make sure we do it right. So it's going to be a real slow 5-year process, but it is something that we're doing to hopefully get kiddos away from the I'm a failure because I didn't get an A and more to the I'm a winner because I know and I mastered the content.
Very well done. Any questions from the board or comments?
I'll go. I'm wondering, so I hear you say about the folks who've been out of school for like 6 months or something. Are we doing anything to bridge the gap maybe from the Phoenix Talent District from, the middle school probably area and maybe the beginning of high school to maybe identify those folks and catching them earlier before we get into that situation where they're out for 6 months? I don't know if we're doing any cooperative things within the district to pick up those folks before they get in a situation like they do.
A great question that I don't have the full answer to, but I really enjoy. I want to do that, and it was one of my goals on there for getting more ninth grade on track was making sure that we are going into the middle schools and making sure that this option is available. Because we are so small, we're able to hit them one-on-one, which, like I said, in a conventional school is a lot harder to do. So making sure that they know that's an option. I know I just got a parent survey back that said we have not been marketing well enough, so they didn't even know we existed. So name change, new marketing, really making sure that we're in the community might also help. But yeah, I think working collaboratively with the middle schools would be a great idea.
Do you know what percentage of your student population is in the Phoenix Town School District?
Yeah, so we actually went up this year. I went through and counted our current enrollment, and we're at 41% is what I saw was in the Phoenix Town School District, which honestly is not really what we want. We want to be pulling kids from other school districts into the Phoenix Town School District. So although we do want to catch those kiddos from the district like we have been, I think it's important that our outreach goes further and that we do pull in the kiddos from Ashland and Medford and Eagle Point. The survey that I was talking about, the community survey, was actually a parent from Ashland saying like, hey, you should put some pamphlets at Ashland High School or nearby because we had no idea you were here. So yeah, right now it's 41%.
Maybe that partnership that you're having with Project Youth Plus, because they're in a lot of those schools, could be really, they're amazing. Okay. And maybe that could be capitalized upon to guide people toward your program.
Other questions? Just a couple for you. And great job, by the way. Thank you. That 41% of, is that, I assume that's because they live within the boundary. Do we know how many of those kids attended one of our schools before?
I do not have that answer because what happens was because of FERPA, when they transfer out of ATI, we no longer have access to their power school to see what was happening. Otherwise, I would have pulled that data from you. Yeah, I don't have that answer.
Okay.
I would love to have that answer though. That would be great to know.
Yeah, I think we would be interested to know, I did the maths, 30 kids, and at what point did that break down if they attended one of our schools, one of our traditional schools, if you will. What is your capacity at the school at this point?
Yeah, so we have 74 and we want to stay around 100. I believe our charter is for 120, but due to the way that we run the school and the fact that we do want that one-on-one and we really don't want to go above 20 students in a class in order to maintain that, we want to stick around 100.
Thank you.
Ready? So while Chris gets that up, just the goal here tonight is to be able to share with you guys a few things so that if community members ask you what PTRA is about, you've got some talking points. So just want to get some high level information to you. So we'll go ahead and get started. Our school structure, it hasn't changed in the last couple of years. We have two teachers, elementary and middle school teachers, an IA secretary, myself. You can see the class breakdown. We have some in-person physical element for our school, actually virtual though, right? We do some in-person things. We'll talk more about that. And I know you guys have heard some of that at board meetings, but largely virtual. Here's our current enrollment numbers. You can see the kind of breakdown. So each teacher has about the same number of kids currently. We're at 32. Actually, I think it's 33 as of today. So that might have changed by one, but that's very typical. And let's go to the next page. You'll see, and I wanted to give you some context here. So this is kind of what we've seen historically when the school opened back in September of 2021. We had 106 kids. Of course, we were still at the height of the pandemic. So those kids were with us primarily for health concerns, right? So, but as we turn into a more normal year last year and then this year, you can see what the trend has been. We started last year with 23 kids. We started this year with 21 kids. At this point in the year, we were 30. Right now we're at 33. And we don't know where we're going to end. Last year we ended at 54. But you can see the trend is that where we see the influx of kids coming is at the end of quarter 1. That's where we picked up about 4 kids in the last week. And right around winter break, and again around purpose of that, or the reason I think is those are kind of natural break points for families. They're also when report cards and progress reports are coming out and parents are making assessments about what's the best place for their kids at this current time. So that's the structure we're seeing. Are you going ahead without me? All right. So when parents talk to us about why they want their kids to come, every kid who we have an intake meeting with them to get information from them about why they want to come, as well as what our program looks like. This is what we hear. These are why kids come to us. First thing is, for elementary in particular, they want to homeschool their kids, but they don't have necessarily the know-how, the structure, the materials. So they want supported homeschool. That's what our elementary families tell us most of the time. We do have some health concerns. There's primarily in the area of mental and emotional, talking largely about anxiety issues. Social anxiety is a big issue, especially for our middle schoolers. We do have some physical illness kids or physical health concerns. Travel and lifestyle, we've got families. Last year we had a family in India, went to India for 3 months. We had a family in Mexico. We had a family in Pennsylvania, all over the place. And so that helps them out. Social and behavioral, we get some of those folks primarily from the middle school who might be struggling in whatever social or behavioral areas. We get those, and we've had pretty good success with those kids. Some families really want the flexible schedule. They just realize they can't get up and they can't get their kids up by the time that school starts at Talon Elementary at 7:50. So they're good to go at 10, so they come join us. So that works well for them. And so also the curricular choices and flexibility, we have some parents who realize they've heard from other families that, oh, you can take this elective. You guys are offering Japanese. You're offering all these other things that you can't get at our in-person schools. So we do have some folks coming to us for that. So when people ask what kind of folks come to PTRA, those are the folks that are coming. And that's the service that this district is providing. This sets of parents and families that are, not the norm, but it is providing a service for those folks who need something different. Okay. So elementary program, just briefly. You guys have seen this, I think, or heard this before. We have live instruction every day, 30 minutes every day, every class in math and reading. Okay. On Fridays, they have an in-person activity. We follow the same pacing and subject matter and standards as our traditional elementary schools. We've got teacher-created content and then parent-supported, parent-delivered instruction as well. We have interventions that are provided by our teacher as well as our IA. And we have in-person, we've talked about that before. And then they do have access, and some of our kids use our libraries at our elementary schools. We've had kids who come in and use music services and library and PE services, so we are able to use those. Chris. In terms of core instruction, that's supported by the teacher. Those other areas, social studies, health, PE, and art, those are instructional materials are given to the parents, and the parents do those themselves. The teacher really supports math, language arts, and science. In terms of middle school, we have all the direct instruction is through Edmonton. So that's our instructional platform. It's an online platform, a learning platform. The teacher meets with the whole class once a week. They meet individually. She meets individually with students also once a week. So kids have 2 required meets a week. The rest of the time, they're not in meetings. But the teacher grades assignments, offers one-on-one support. And then we do have in-person time, and we've talked about that before. We've got an in-person time on Tuesdays and again on Fridays for our middle schoolers. Those are always optional, by the way. Kids take 7 classes, very similar to the classes they take at the middle school. They're going to have math, language arts, science, social studies, and then health PE. They get an elective, and there's an advisory class. So similar in terms of the coursework at the middle school. Our core cut classes are year-long classes, and then electives change each quarter. And then advisory, of course, is all year. This is our school report card. Not a lot to see on here, other than you can see Our attendance went up from last year, 85% attendance last year compared to the year before at 62, which we're pretty happy about. And this year we're doing even better. I'll get you guys a report on that later, but we've been trending incredibly well. But not a lot to look at here because we don't have enough students taking these tests for them to show up. In terms of our iReady diagnostics, I think you guys are going to see maybe elementary. Yeah, I think elementaries are going to share some iReady information with you. If you look up here, just generally, this is our K through 8 results, and you can kind of see in terms of reading where they are. So a lot of green, which is actually really great. We've got on level coming into the year, which is awesome. And we've got a handful who are below level as well. But we do have a really good percentage of kids who are doing well starting the year. So that's good news. And then looking at math, not quite as well. You can see that's going to be a trend. And it always has been a trend in our district in terms of our math compared to our reading. But the good news is there's a lot of kids in the yellow and green bands. So that's going to be one of our goals this year is in the area of math. You'll see here in a minute. Right now, actually. So here's what we want to do. And I was talking with a couple other folks about this today. Trying to build a sense of community and belonging in a virtual school is challenging. We're working to find ways to do that by just creating hybrid opportunities, creating socializing opportunities, offering field trips that the whole family can come to, family engagement and empowerment events. We're trying to find ways to encourage those folks to engage with us and engage with each other. And that's one of our goals. Attendance, you saw our attendance improvements this year. We think we're going to do even better next year, or this year, I should say, compared to last year. So we're excited about that. And then math achievement. You saw where we were on already. If you saw our math scores on our last year, Smarter Balanced, they're a little better than that already, but we've got work to do. So with individual kids. So that's where the areas we're going to focus this year. So that's it. Questions for me?
When you have the, thank you. And when you have the student come in, are you doing that at Phoenix Elementary for the middle schoolers as well?
Yep.
And so do the middle schoolers have access to PE, music, and art at the middle school?
We have done art over there, not PE, and we have done music over there. So the PE classes at the middle school have generally been bigger, and so we're not trying to add to those. We have other ways to get PE for kids, but definitely band and art. We've had kids involved in those the last couple of years.
What happens if someone's really enjoying this program and I guess it stops at 8th grade, right? What happens if they want to continue, or what is the option? Is it Compass here? What happens after that?
Yeah, so here at the high school, we have the Compass program, and that's evolved the last 3 years. Every year it's looked a little different, but they can come in and they've got some options to participate completely virtually, partially virtually, or just have support through Compass on campus here. So, and Kaylin can speak a lot more about that, but there are folks who leave us and they're concerned about going back in for in-person entirely. And so they do have some transitional opportunities.
And can a student, when they're in this program, work? I hear you're meeting with them, covering certain topics, but can they work at their own pace, work ahead? So if they're ahead of grade level, I can see for my own experience, for like challenging a student who is not working at the grade level, but they don't have the maturity of going to the next grade. Is there opportunity for them to do that?
Yeah, we do that at both elementary and secondary level.
Mm-hmm.
So at the elementary level, in terms of reading, all that reading is done by ability level, not by grade level. So she sorts them into ability level groups. And so those kids, we have a second grader who's with a 4th grade group.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 3rd grader working with a 1st grade group right now. But we do that. And then at the secondary level, yeah, it's really easy at that point because we can just assign courses based on the kid's ability. And so we've had kids taking geometry classes in 8th grade, which we always did at Talent Middle School as well, but there's a physical element to that of getting them here.
Right.
Whereas online, it's very easy. So yeah, it's very simple to do.
Thank you.
I'd meant some last year here at the high school. How did it change from like last year to this year here? And like, how does it change from like year to year?
So the Edmonton platform is largely the same. They tweak it a little bit every year, right? But the way that they present is largely the same. There's the same courses. The high school courses are different than the middle school courses that we have. But in terms of the platform, it looks a lot the same.
Yeah, excuse my ignorance here, but the students that you have, are they all from our district?
I'm gonna say yes. Yes.
Can
We have to be completely honest, Rick, we have 2 kids who've had mid-year moves who are now living outside of our district, but they're legally in our district taking classes with us.
do they have to be? I mean,
Yeah, we're subject to the same rules as all the other schools in the district. So if a kid wants to join us that isn't living in our district, they have to get an inter-district transfer. Whereas the reverse of that is those kids who, like the kid who went to India for 3 months, they live here. They were just on a trip. So their residence is here in our district.
can we open it up to other districts?
Yeah,
With
absolutely.
inter-district transfer.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have kids on inter-district transfers with us, but only 1 or 2 this year.
Thank you.
I also might just share that every year we send out a letter, Aaron sends out a letter to students in our district, families in our districts that are doing other online options throughout the state. And we get some of those families back.
Yeah, not just online, but also kids who are going to like Logos and other local options here that are not, we're not capturing them in our district. So that's our primary goal, is to try to bring kids in who are district students, but aren't accessing our services, our district services.
One more, sorry. Middle school, can they participate in sports at the middle school?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, sports and clubs. Yeah, and we really haven't, we had 1 kid do volleyball last year. I don't think we have anybody doing anything this year, but they have the ability to.
I'm thinking about, I saw there was an instructional assistant. Do they support elementary or both?
She does it all. So
Yeah,
she's our
okay.
office manager,
Okay.
secretary, registrar. But she does run intervention groups primarily with our elementary kids. But we have an open classroom space that kids can come and ask questions, and so she staffs that time to time.
Yeah, it was good. So going along that path, if you see that a kid needs an intervention in reading or math, is she the point person, but then do kids have access to additional supports like a tutor network or anything else like that?
So they get the direct support with those interventions, but we do have, especially the secondary kids, the middle school kids, have access to things like Khan Academy. We direct them that way for free options. We do have parents who ask us about paid tutoring, and we do have those resources too, but we don't try to push those. So.
Awesome. Any more questions, comments? Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have Orchard Hill, Phoenix Elementary, Talent Elementary. Elementary represent. They went with beige business neutral today. Yes. That's called peer collaboration.
Maybe that's why it matches our presentation. Good evening, everybody. My name is Shauna Schleif, principal at Phoenix Elementary School. I'm happy to be presenting here with Heather Lowe, principal at Talent, and Kent Valier, principal at Orchard Hill. We're doing a joint presentation from the elementary level, and our theme this year is really about refinement and precision. And I get to be the one to kind of kick things off and just show you what we're doing. So we're going to talk to you tonight about like the what, the why, the how, and the future. And at our 3 elementary schools several years ago started doing joint presentations because we've become, it's been really important for us to be unified in our approaches and putting parts in place to help us continue to learn and grow and achieve for our students. So we'll start with kind of the what. Why are we here? So we're here for children. So I would love to invite you to read this quote by Maya Angelou. As you finish reading that, what I would like to do, each of us have a role in this district. And I would invite you to think of a student who comes to mind that gives you your purpose for why you serve in the role that you serve in right now. So as we go through our presentation, I just want you to be thinking about who are you serving in your role, and we'll continue to talk about who we're serving and why we're serving and what we're doing about helping our students along the way. I just included some of these cute little pictures about our roles in elementary education. Sometimes it feels a little bit like a zoo. The first picture is a picture of, what was the place called? Wildlife Images, who came to town elementary school. And I just love this idea of kids just like getting excited about learning. And it does sometimes feel a little bit like a zoo at elementary school level, but it really is pretty exciting. And then this is a little picture from a guy. We were at the beginning of the year, we started our some new stuff. We were doing some additional practices around ensuring that kids feel really comfortable and safe when they come to school. So this is a kiddo's first day seeing his classroom. And this is the beginning of his long journey here at PTS. He has a lot of siblings in the district, a lot of cousins, and just seeing his shining face is kind of why we do what we do. In the work that we're doing, we're thinking about our journey with equity. And so we're taking a lot of time at the elementary level looking at our systems and looking at it through the lens of saying, how is this system serving our students? Who is it working well for? Who is it not working well for? And getting really kind of detailed around how we can do better for all kids, because that's really what we need to be doing. So we're looking at this from a systems level point of view, and we're also trying to be creative and thinking about some of the things that are outside of the box. So I'm excited to hand it over to Heather pretty soon, because she's going to be talking a little bit about some of the things you've already heard, but how we're being more precise and refined in our practices. Here's a picture of who we are serving. We have 3 different elementary schools, but we're doing a lot of similar work, and yet we have some common themes on needs, and we have some different needs as well. So you can kind of take a look and see the different numbers of students we have and then the makeup of the students that we get to serve. I don't know if I need to go read through all of them individually, but just give you another second to look through that. MKVAs are students who qualify for the McKinney-Vento Act, which is the students who are experiencing homelessness or houselessness. Yeah. So one of the things that we're here is that to kind of talk about why we're doing what we're doing. And what we're doing is really centering ourselves on data. And I love this quote: without data, all we have is opinions. And this quote comes from he's an engineer, he's an architect, he's the person who you might have heard us talk about PDSA cycles, this kind of this idea of continuous improvement. So he just talks about the importance of using data to help drive our work, so that, because if we're just left to our opinions, we have hunches, we have theories, we have bias. And so we really need to kind of use our data to help guide us in what we need to do. So with that in mind, here's some of our data. So our regular attendance, and when you see the word regular attendance, that means that students who are attending more than 90% of the time. And so last year, we ended the year with numbers that we weren't really proud of. So we've been doing some intentional focused work around improving our attendance, and it's paying off. So these are our current numbers right now, and we feel pretty good about that. And then the next thing is, here's our ELA targets. So within the next 3 years, we have some specific learning targets that we're working towards. And then here, the first number that you see up there, those are our last year's state benchmarks. So that's our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, how they, those who met in the area of English language arts. And then right now, here's our fall iReady data. The iReady data and Smarter Balance data is pretty correlated. So even though these numbers look a little low, they're gonna reach up to the grade level expectations. So this is just some of the data that we have to show. We're gonna change it. Here's our math data. Again, when we think about looking at our data, sometimes looking at data can be really scary because you look at numbers that you're like, whoa, how did we get there? And oftentimes you can come up with rationale and stories and things like that. But when we look at some of these numbers, and me specifically, when I look at it for PES, I look at it with a lot of hope because I know what we're doing, the practices that we are putting in place are gonna improve these numbers. I have faith in that, and I'm excited for Heather to share that with you. So again, you look at where we ended in math, and then where we are right now, and we know that it's gonna grow. So Heather's gonna talk a little bit more about how we're gonna improve.
Thanks, Shauna. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. It is really nice that we match unplanned. I don't know how we do it, but we do it. So I get the pleasure of really speaking more eloquently to like the precision and, like, what are we thinking? How are we finding the systems? And I think of that when we talk and we, chitter chatter all day long, it's really our roadmap to success. What have we been paving the way the last couple of years, coming out of the fire and the pandemic, the systems that we really, we have like spent a good amount of time the last 2 years, especially thinking about our systems and how we're serving them. And so this is kind of the roadmap and what we talk about probably ad nauseum, accentuate the positive, but that's what we're living through. And so these are kind of our 4 areas of focus, and that's what it is. It's absolutely focus on these 4 areas of pedagogy, improvement cycles, distributed leadership, and coaching. That's what we breathe and live every day at elementary and at middle and high, for sure. So when I speak about pedagogy, I can't remember who was like, does the board know that word? That's such an educationese word. I'm like, of course they do. Pedagogy is how we teach, what we're teaching. And for us, these 3 components of pedagogy are of utmost importance. When we talk about curriculum and think the last few years of really ensuring that we have a viable evidence-based curriculum delivered in every single classroom. And when you talk about like what can we do to support you, it's continuing to beat that drum that we are delivering a very good curriculum at every grade level in every classroom. So we've spent a lot of time, thinking about the best way to out. You've seen that you've heard us talk about pacing guides, and that ongoing quest to be really aligned with our colleagues across the district and making sure that even in PTRA, for example, that we're all doing the same work because it's an issue of equity, making sure that. We're also really mindful of the important role that elementary serves in setting the groundwork for early literacy development. There's, years and years of evidence of if students aren't learning to read, their long-term outcomes are really suffering. So we're grounding our work in the science of reading and making sure that this curriculum, which is definitely based in the science of reading, is being implemented with precision because we know the reading is clear. It's 30 years of evidence based on this stuff. And so, our job now is really getting people to think about that and like understand it and change the teaching. And then thirdly, it's really pedagogy, instructional routines and strategies. We're getting what works. Part of our building improvement plan includes developing these critical attribute sheets. So when we say learning targets, it's a common understanding about what that is. Evidence behind that practice. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Why it works for kids, why it works for teachers. So that's the work. Our next, really getting clear about instructional strategies. You've also heard Shauna talk a little bit about that quote about data and plan, do, study, act, right? This is the work of continuous improvement and rooted in improvement science as well. And what we're doing is making small adjustments, collecting data, evaluating impact, and determining next steps. And what we've worked on the last couple of years is immersing that practice into our systems. When we talk about our PLC teams, there are level teams at elementary, they're all engaging in PDSA cycles this year. We've asked them to do 4. They're helping with that work. So what kind of instructional tweak in the classroom as you collect your data, you look at it and say, is this something I want to keep doing? We have that in our EBIS, which are sorry for all the acronyms at the time. That's what we live in. EBIS is Effective Behavior Instructional Support Systems. So we have a system for evaluating core data when we look at the 80% and when we look at our 20% interventions. Also, not surprising, we're doing PDSA cycles in our family engagement work, and of course with behavior supports. So what does the data tell us? We go through a cycle, it could be in literally anything that we're looking at, and we say, gosh, what was the impact of it? Was it positive, negative, no impact? And then you say, gosh, are we going to adopt this, adapt it, or are we going to abandon it? And then you rinse and recycle. That's the process of continuous improvement. So when we talk about PDSA cycles, that's what we mean. And they are definitely getting more and more embedded into our systems. It's refinement and precision. And you hear us talk about a lot about these, right? Distributive leadership. Gosh, this is our third year of having our leadership teams at the elementary level. And we this year condensed it down from 5 to 4. And we've had one renaming. You know, our academic team is constantly looking at pedagogy and teaching and how our students are doing. Shauna's team is really looking at reading. I'm really looking at math and getting really clear about how are our students performing and what to do and improve on. You hear a lot about family engagement because it's kind of flashy and everywhere, and it's been, you know, a transformation of how we're talking with our families and working with them. And you know, I've said this a million times probably, but there's like the components of family engagement, right? Are making sure that our families, when they come to campus, are connecting with one another, that they're looking at data, their students' individual data, comparative to the class data set. They're setting goals, and families are getting skills to build capacity to support learning at home. And the RAPS is our new team, which is just a rebranding of SEL PBIS. But we thought, you know, Derek is taking on like a district level RAPS coordinator kind of leadership role. And so we're like, well, elementary should be in line with that. And that's really looking at how restorative practices, attendance, our PBIS structure, and our SEL are serving the well-being of our kiddos. And then speaking of well-being, we all have wellness teams. And when we first started wellness, that was really focused on staff wellness as we were coming out of the pandemic and those years that we don't want to talk about. And really, as we refine that, it's the wellness of our community, and not just, you know, we really needed to take care of our staff as we came out of that. And now we're like, okay, now we're going to start developing programs and plans for the wellness of our students and our community. And then last but not least, we are really focused on coaching. Doesn't matter your role, but you're getting a coach. So our classified, we've kind of redesigned some of our evaluation processes. And now all classified staff are setting goals and getting, you know, they like to do a little reflection at the beginning of the year and they say, where do I want to improve? And that's our job as the supervisors. Obviously certified, our teaching staff all set goals. They get an instructional coach, and they do goal setting and coaching through our evaluation process. And this year we've done a lot of work with coaching with administrators, and I think it was the last board meeting that I shared my appreciation for Javier, and you know, he's really leading the charge of this work and making sure that we are aligning our feedback processes and practices as a district, as the administrative team. So that's kind of the refinement and precision in a nutshell. I'm going to kick it to somebody.
I was just sitting there thinking, this is my 36th year, and that is a lot of stuff. And I will admit, I'm kind of a simple boy from Klamath, and that is a lot. And I go, do we really do all that stuff? So my job is to kind of re-simplify this for you guys. Shauna and Heather and Javier and I were talking the other day, and we're talking, what are we really talking about? What's our future look like? And we thought about this quote from Aristotle: the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I don't know, Reina or Javier, if you guys have Miss Redding for math, but please don't tell her that I stood up here, because this is not arithmetically correct. And I don't want Miss Redding on my bad side, okay? But Aristotle, I think he's onto something. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And he really understood the power of people and systems working together. So really what the parts are, family engagement, and the work with Sherry Wilson that we've all done. one of the consistent leading indicators in research is for high achieving students are highly involved families. So we're deeply involved with that. All buildings have coaches. The elementary's had for a few years now, and the high school now has this year. We are responsible for full implementation of curriculum, the iReady and the Amplify, that's the math and the language arts that you all have spent millions of dollars on. And it's our job to really fully implement that. And new this year that Javier is working with us and a national consultant, Marcia Moyer, is our accountability as principals to make sure that all these things are happening. And Javier and Marcia have worked with us. And what we're doing is refocusing our efforts on supporting high quality instruction in every classroom. That's the next slide I wanted to get to. So those were the parts. The whole is really, I think, our district culture. When I put this no fear sign up here because we were thinking how we wanted to thank the board and our administration for all you do for us. And it's really more than support because we need to operate in an environment without fear. Because we all know without fear, production rises, risk is valued and encouraged, growth is realized, and students learn. You know what? You don't have our latest iteration. Yeah. There was an updated one. You must not have it. I apologize. If you have any questions about that, Shauna and Heather would be happy to answer them. It's not there. It's all right. I apologize. Are there any questions about elementary program? It's all right.
I'd like to see it. I love how we went from no fear to this, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm experiencing fear.
No, let it go. Let the fear go. It's okay. We're ahead of schedule.
It's all right. It's okay.
No, you're about to bring this home, Kent. And we want to land the plane here tonight.
The last slide is just really what this all boils down to is higher student achievement. We have great teachers, we have wonderful kids, and that data, if all of our systems are working together and all of our people are working together in a culture that is supportive, one of the last slides had the Peter Drucker slide that culture eats strategy for lunch. And if we don't keep up a positive culture, all those systems won't work well together, and achievement, I don't think, will grow much. So that essentially was the last slide. And we want the board to know that our focus is on children, and they're here for a reason, and that reason is to learn. And that's demonstrated in the test that we take in the spring. That was the last.
Questions, comments?
I have something. Like Kent said, I feel like it's a lot. And you also, between the three of you, command the biggest population of students that we have in this district. And I always, I spent a lot of time at the high school, but I do feel like sometimes we need to do more to support the elementary schools and those folks in the community that are coming into it for sure. I'm going to ask a hard question and you can have option of answering it or not. Kent's like, oh man. I would love to know. Yeah, you don't say not it because maybe you're not it. I don't know. I'm saying it's totally optional, but I'm wondering what keeps you awake at night at 3 o'clock that you're struggling with that we as a board possibly could help you with, or that you would think that in the future you could improve on.
Sleeping, not sleeping. Like we both have insomnia. I'll answer it. For me, it's just like, how do you continue to for me, it's all about instructional minutes. You know, and we said that last year. In fighting the battle of, you know, like we just went that thing that just happened, and making sure that like
we understand the value of having teachers in front of kids as the most important piece. We have the tools, we have the curricular resources, we have the vision, we have the map, we have the systems that we're working really hard, and it's really hard to impact change when you only have this much time.
Every night. No, I'm just trying to think in terms of like. Thank you for the question, Polly. I think the thing that keeps me up at night is wondering. Well, it's not wondering what we're doing is correct because I have a full faith that what we're doing is that sometimes we don't yield the results that we believe in and we know and we have faith in what we're doing and we know it's the right work, and yet sometimes the data doesn't reflect that for lots of different reasons. And so I think the thing that keeps me up at night is just making sure that that we look at that data as individual kids and not numbers, and that we know kids by their story, by their strength, by their need, and continue to serve them in a holistic way. And so sometimes that's a big rock to lift and a big worry to carry along with us. But I feel really supported, like Kent was just saying. I feel really proud to work in a district that really supports us and even with some of the scores that we have and says, and I don't feel a lot of negative pressure. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but we don't feel that from you, and I appreciate that. So that continued support in that and the trust that we're doing what we know to be doing, or we know what we're doing and we're doing it well, and we're also very willing to grow and learn from each other.
I have two. One is kind of internal, something I feel I have a lot of control over, and one I feel like it can influence. I worry honestly about my leadership because I want to be able to inspire our staff, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road, in the classroom with that teacher, with those kids, so that they're inspired, they're safe, they take risks, we have trust. I coach and support and keep them building a positive culture. So I worry about how I'm doing at that. So that's internal. The external thing I worry about in all of our work with the community care specialists, there are quite a few kids that experience a lot of trauma out there. And at young ages, we see it, and it's hard. But I'm glad that our district is doing something about that too. Those are my two.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that tough question. I want to say personally, I support you in what you're doing, and I'm so grateful that you are in the place that you are.
So, but you should be at my house. You should be at my house. No, I have lots of favorites. So my question is a little bit pointed towards Shauna's comment about data. So when you look at gathering a data set, how long of a span of time are you looking at as you're continually gathering data to the gather it, analyze, look, rinse, cycle and repeat? And then, okay, so that's one. And then my other follow-up question is, I trust you, Sarah Crawford, trust and control issues. So that's a big thing. To know what you're doing, right? Because I value you and I trust you. But how to really look at that when it's not showing what you want it to see, what you want to see, what you know is there. And then, so can you bridge those for me a little bit? We want to look at the data, but we also are not sure we're seeing really what's happening in the data. So can you connect those for me?
So I think what you're kind of alluding to is this idea, so when we started learning about PDSA cycles, one of the things that we're really good in education about is learning a new idea and then scaling it up. It's like, oh, this is a good idea for this person, so we're going to mass produce it up and try new strategies. And so the PDSA cycle, what we're trying to do on both our individual grade level teams and in our school teams, is to try and not scale so quickly, is to test theories and then scale later. And so, I hope I'm answering this question, but so in thinking about when we're not seeing the results, sometimes then we'd go just to the next thing rather than tweaking whatever thing we're doing and trying to make it better. And so we're always searching for the next silver bullet or the next magic wand. And so we're trying to become more systematic and precise around looking at individual pieces and knowing what's impacting specific things. So for example, I can give you like in our math data, when I looked at that 3 years ago, when we used to have this focus on professional learning communities and grade level teams doing data and working together. And then of course we shift our focuses and then the pandemic happens. Right coming out of the pandemic, I remember when my son was in the 2nd grade doing online instruction, he was on a specific lesson and I walked into our 2nd grade class, and not fault of the teacher or anything, but because kids had gaps and then their skills weren't there yet, they were really teaching towards the kid and not towards the grade level standard. And so it was like, whoa, there's a huge discrepancy around what our students at PES were getting and my own child was getting at Talent. And I wouldn't have known that had I not had my ears in that classroom. And so like we've done a lot of work around alignment as a district so that we can all make sure our kids are exposed to grade level content, even though some of them might not be there yet. They still have to, we have to do things like intervene at their level and teach them at grade level at the same time. So those are the types of things that we're doing. And we're seeing like those when the things like that happen, when we're not teaching grade level content to kids, the gap just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's something that we've had in our district for a while. Teachers have had a lot of autonomy. And so the stronger that we become as leaders in terms of holding high accountability to alignment and standards, the stronger our kids are going to get.
Yeah, you guys are winning this award, by the way, because I got questions too, or statements. So just so you know.
First off, I think the reward is silly because you have a board that's has lots of questions, and no one should be criticized by our amount of questions.
I'm purposely bringing it to light tonight on purpose.
It is not my favorite. So can you explain more about the family engagement? I know we've changed family engagement. The board has done a lot of work in family engagement. I believe it's actually one of our priorities, and I can't remember the name. Guiding principle. Thank you. This is why I have great board members to help me speak. So I know the data isn't probably because it's only been 1 year, but can you like say what your observation is on how family engagement is going and how it's helping student achievement?
Absolutely. We just had a meeting. Sherry Wilson's our consultant that we've been working with for a couple years now. When we first built our leadership teams and had a family engagement team, that team is the one who went through the initial training of like, what are the best practices? What is the research showing out there? And Dr. Maps is really leading the way nationally. And so we're following that guidance. And Sherry is our consultant that helps us rethink our system in that way. But the data is really, really impressive. And so we just met with Sherry a couple weeks ago to talk about like our conferences that are coming up next week, which is great. And last year we redesigned them at the elementary level. We're rinsing and repeating that. But we looked at the data because, again, without data, all we have is the opinion, right? And so we were in this family engagement meeting with all 3 elementary schools talking about conferences. And the conversation was shifting. And Shauna and I were just sitting there listening, shifting about rooted in fear, and families don't want this. They don't want to see their data, their individual student data projected or class data. It makes them feel bad, and like all this weird stuff. And I listened, and then I pulled up the data from last year, because last year we collected data. We had a survey after we, conducted these conferences that were small group, but were different, right? And I don't know. I think it was like 90+% of families were like, we value the direction of this initiative. And cool comments like, I didn't think I'd like this, but it was really fun to get to know so and so. And I walked away with a renewed sense of like how to support my kid. I have a kiddo in my school whose mom just dove headfirst in, and I was looking at his specific iReady data, the growth from before we implemented this initiative full on last year to his growth the year before we implemented it. And I think his last year our focus was language arts. So his growth prior to the initiative was like 94% typical growth. After the initiative and his parent engaged in the work with us, 236% typical growth. So it's working. It's working for the individuals. It's working for the system, and we're tracking that because it's very curious, you know. And I'll share it like on a personal level. It's helping my own kid, you know, like her dad doesn't know how to support her, you know, like he's not a trained teacher, and most parents aren't trained educators. And so when you say read with your kid at home or practice these math things at home, we make a lot of assumptions that parents know how to do that and family knows how to support that learning, and they just don't, because it's not their job, right? And they do. Those are their babies. They're the most important person in their life. And when you give them the skills to support them, they're gonna take it and run, even if it's just 20 minutes, you know, here and there. They'll do it. And so the data is really proving effective. So.
One thing I'll say too, one of the things that Sherry talks about a lot around family engagement is that there's like two purposes to family engagement. There's relationship building and connecting. And that's one of the things that we've done. That's a cornerstone of our district. We've done a lot of events that support that. And now as we're shifting to capacity, she calls it capacity building, so that then they can be partners, so that then it can influence outcomes. So like when we're doing relationship building stuff, there's not a direct correlation between relationship building and changing out student outcomes. And now we're being really intentional about, we want to change student outcomes for the better. And so this is another strategy that we're employing to help support that.
Others? Yeah, I got some stuff. I can't express enough appreciation to go to an OSBA conference. We all spent a day on Thursday learning about effective governance and how school boards can impact student achievement. And so many of the things that you all talked about tonight are things that we learned. A lot of them we already knew, but that we learned in that training, like the use of disaggregated data, continuous monitoring and improvement, a focus on all children, looking at systems, focusing on early literacy, intentionality around all of these things. So it's so refreshing. I know we're not where we want to be, but it gives me hope to hear these things and how aligned you all are, to know that we're focusing on the right things. So I want to thank you for that. I'm beating this drum, and you all started this, so thank you for that. But we are all really focused on intentional or instructional time right now as well. One of the things we've learned that I want to say publicly right now is that our schedule, we have a recommended number of instructional minutes in math and reading that our curriculum recommends, and we are short on that. 15 minutes per day in reading, 15 minutes per day in math. So we also have we are in a state with one of the shortest school years in the nation. We are in a state with some of the lowest academic performance in the nation. I think there's a correlation there. I think there is. We are also in a district with one of the shortest school years in the state. So you add all those together, to me, it's no wonder some of our data is proving out to what it is. So there's a lot at play with all of this. It's not going to change overnight, but in thinking of that instructional time, one of the things we're starting to do, I'm trying to bring this conversation to a higher level, to the state level. And I'd like to ask you, if you had to choose one, and I know you probably choose both, but what is most important, do you think? Is it the time during each day, or is it the length of our school year?
So this is the third state that I've worked in. Washington being my most familiar, 180-day minimum, and we have 167. And if you add all that time up, that's a lot in an elementary career. So I value 180 days.
I also came from Washington before I came to Oregon, and my sister lives in Washington, and I keep going back to that too, because that's 13 days a year times 13 years. That's a full entire year of education that her kids are going to get that mine won't.
15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day is, I think, 40 something hours. So that's a week, right? So yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. So we will reconvene at 7:15. Students, you are both so wonderful. Thank you for being here. You're welcome. are back. And next is Talent Middle School.
Good evening. It's so nice to be here. Thank you all. Thank you so much for the nice dinner too. That was a real treat to come and enjoy each other's company and get to enjoy such nice food. So thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here as the principal of Talent Middle School, Catherine Holden, in my second year as principal. And it's been a great start to the school year. It's been really nice starting my second year, a little more under my belt and kind of understanding some of the processes and community over there. I think the hardest part for me I think I'd prefer to go first because as I watch the different presentations, I'm like, oh, wait, I wish I would have put that in. And oh, it would have been great if I had done that too. And oh, so I guess for next year, I have all sorts of ideas, but this is what I got for tonight. Here's what talent looks like. We have some amazing kids there. I really, really love this year that I just know so many more of the kids, having them come back a second year. I just feel like when I'm in the hallways, I'm so much more connected to so many of them. And it's just been really fun to have them back. And in our student demographics, again, just some quick numbers here. One of the things that I've come to really appreciate is I more and more as I've talked to principals the last couple years, like the last year, I've met with a lot of different principals around the country and had the opportunity to understand that in some ways our demographics are unique in the sense that we're a school that has about 50% students who are white and about 50% students of color. And that's actually, you know, when you look at different schools around our country, oftentimes you have students that are primarily students who are white, or you might have other schools that are primarily students of color. And I'm finding this is such a valuable demographic to get to work within. And I really appreciate kind of what comes with that in terms of our shared collective value around wanting to serve all students. So I really have appreciated learning more about that. Some other stats, as we know, about a quarter of our students are second language learners. About 16% of our students have an IEP of some kind or a 504, and then the large majority of our families qualify for free and reduced lunch. I just wanted to read this quote because I think it's, you know, middle school is pretty unique. As we know, I was at the National Middle Level Association Conference 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. And it just reminds me when you spend time with just people who work in middle schools, it really is a good reinforcer that it is its own unique situation, right? So middle school can bring about new changes and challenges for your child. This is the time in which they will experience hormonal changes and embark on their journey towards really discovering who they are, who they want to be, and where they feel like they fit in. There's a lot of struggle within that sometimes. So this journey towards these discoveries can be trying, exhausting, overwhelming, and sometimes full of drama. But next slide. Those of us that work in middle schools really love middle school for those same reasons. But we have to recognize there's a complexity to it because of kind of this internal journey that students are going through and really trying to find that sense of belonging. So we have done some values work with the staff this year, really trying to start to focus on what are our common goals and our common desires for our students. And this came out of an activity in August that we did as a staff. And, you know, starting to really, this represents in a word cloud like this represents sort of the different words that came up for different staff members. And if the word's larger, that means more staff members were recognizing that those were kind of a value. And when we talked about the values for this, it was around what is it that we want for our students, right? I have personal values that I could say, well, these are my personal values. And I might even have values that when working with colleagues, I value those things in colleagues. But we tried to really stand in that as educators. What are the values that we have that we want to, throughout the 3 years that our students are with us, impart, teach, support, and nurture. And so as a staff, these are the values that we're trying to focus on. Okay. And then this also sort of lived in the letter home that I sent this summer, thinking about some of our goals this year. There's 4 different bullets. I know it's hard to read from there, but kind of those first 2, thinking about creating a respectful campus where people treat each other with kindness and care. That is more kind of my personal value, but luckily it does echo and resonate with a lot of other people who work with children. And also a place where students really have a sense of belonging and connection. So those felt like things that we are putting energy into this year. And the next one. But additionally, right, if we're just creating a nurturing environment and a place of connection, we don't want to overlook the fact that we very much want to make sure that we're creating a safe environment where students are challenged in learning and really being prepared for academic success, right? As our goal is to teach them, and we want to make sure that they're learning these academic skills along the way. So this is kind of the three slides that are a little hard. Many of our students are still struggling to meet grade level standards in math and reading. This is from our fall iReady. So just like the elementary folks pointed out, iReady is a great kind of baseline for the year, but these numbers are going to improve over the year. So even our winter diagnostic is where we really, really want to see hopefully big improvements. Moving that green bar into yellow. Moving the red bar into yellow and the yellow bar into green, but we really want to expand that green, right? But yes, we do have a lot of work when it comes to getting our students up to grade level in these core subjects. Our attendance overall is feeling, we have room for improvement, but about 77% of our students are in that good attendance range. So that's feeling good. And then we have, as you can see, that kind of yellow chunk there that represents about 18 of our students. We'd really like to move that up, but we're in a striking range of getting them to be regular attenders. And then we have a small group of students that are really struggling to attend school on a regular basis. And so we have a really strong team of people in place right now with our 2 new school counselors and our bilingual family liaison who are really case managing the students that are struggling in attendance right now. And then this one too, for me, just feels, while I kind of set the sights around connection and sense of belonging in August when I was writing the letter, the panorama survey that we just collected from our students. So this is student survey, right? When we think about this sense of belonging area that they were asked, there's a number of questions in there about how well do the people at your school understand you? How connected do you feel to the adults at your school? How much respect do students in your school show you? This is one that obviously our students are communicating. They'd like to feel a stronger sense of belonging. So really putting our focus on activities and opportunities for students to connect more. So that brings me to what we're doing and what we're working on and how we're spending our time. We have 2 new school counselors. It was really exciting to bring them on board. They come with a lot of skills. They've been helping develop a number of our social emotional lessons that are being rolled out in homeroom. We have homeroom every day. I think that's a very good way for students to connect on a daily basis with not only the adult in the room, but the other students. And then also they've brought in a lot of culture, history, and heritage month lessons. So again, really valuing the diversity and educating ourselves about each other. And they're starting to develop some tier 2 and 3 support. So thinking about small group support, different groups that they can be pulling together and targeting certain social emotional skill building. They've also done a lot of crisis support. And they're also bringing in Sources of Strength as a program that is a suicide prevention program that comes highly recommended, and they're getting that up and running. They just kind of sponsored a first generation college day that brought light to kind of the staff on campus who are first generation college students themselves. So yeah, they just have a lot of ideas and are bringing a lot of things along, and we look forward to what they're going to do over the course of the year. And then our homeroom programming, we're really putting a lot of emphasis on community building circles as a foundation for more restorative justice work. Our teachers are running those weekly in their classrooms. Peter Edwards, who's doing his administrative license right now, he's also a teacher with us, has done a lot of modeling and a lot of support for that. We're also doing, like I said, different lessons in homeroom and also school-wide. We've brought in kind of this planner structure where kids really are expected to have their planner, use their planner, write in their planner, be organized with their planner. And teachers have really gotten behind that. So it really is every day in every class, students are writing something in their planner. And it just feels like a strong student habit that we do on our middle school students to really be starting to think about in terms of how to organize their responsibilities. This was just a fun graphic that happened the first month of school, and those represent different hands that were decorated in a homeroom lesson representing the diversity of our school. And that kind of comes from the Sources of Strength model, where we recognize where do I draw my strength from, whether that's my family or my activities or different hobbies that I have. And then also all staff around the district was trained in the QPR model in terms of suicide prevention as well. And then a real focus on instructional moves and thinking about how we're improving the quality of instruction in our classrooms. I've been doing some training on a PLC inquiry cycle, which is like a PDSA model, but it kind of, for the staff where we're at, I think it was a help that helped kind of simplify this inquiry cycle around. We look at data, we make a plan for how we want to try to improve our instruction, and then we reflect on that and make adjustments, and then do it again. Also, a number of our teachers are doing the engagement work that's called SEEKS. We're continuing to develop our math instructional, kind of this discourse and math instructional strategies. And then the learning focused conversations that Marcia Boyer has been doing with all of us at the administrative level. I've been really transparent with the staff about, this is the work I'm doing. This is when I'm in the classroom, this is what I'm looking for. This, and Allison and I are both looking for, and helping them set some goals around that so that when we have these conversations, it doesn't feel like a surprise. And then using our district adopted curriculum to really increase student learning. So that's that. A couple things, we've expanded our enrichment opportunities this year again, so kids are really getting a semester of a couple things and then a semester of a couple other things, so that feels a lot very diverse. And so those are some of the ones that they rotate through. And then we do have increased core instructional time in our 6th grade. Last year we did have the 75-minute classes, but in 6th grade it bumped up to 75 minutes this year, whereas last year it was 7th and 8th grade classes were 75 minutes, but now 6th grade is as well. And they're all getting math and English language arts instruction every day. And we expanded the 2A immersion program as well this year for our 6th graders. So a lot of good things there. And these two, just the pictures, I think this is, the upper right is from the STEM design class. So they're trying to, like the can of soup, how can they hold up multiple cans of soup with the idea of the tower? We're using just paper cylinders. And then on the bottom, we had our 7th grade math teachers brought in an abacus project at the beginning of the year, which was actually, they all learned how to use an abacus that they had actually made. It really was very engaging, and in terms of number sense and what they were getting across, I saw the growth in that as the kids were doing that. Hi. I wanted to recognize Brett Eason. He was honored by the Rogue Credit Union as the Cool Teacher of the Week. So that was pretty fun. But it also represents our band program has been expanding a lot, even over the last just 2 years. Over a quarter of our students are involved in band right now. They've already, some of them have gotten to go to some competitions. And so again, just a really good way for students to feel connected during these middle school years. And our athletics program has also been even stronger than last year. It continues to grow. Over 100 students participated in fall sports. Our boys basketball just started. We have over 40 athletes in there. And we're just, continuing to kind of expand that program. And there's some of our middle school students over at Phoenix High School at a volleyball game. So getting more enthusiasm around that as well. And I think, I'm sure it affected everybody, but with COVID, it felt like the athletics really fell off. So even last year was kind of like hard to pull people in. But a really nice improvement is that all of our 6th graders are now included in basketball and volleyball and wrestling as well. And so we've been able to enter kind of the small schools division and be able to include our 6th graders too. We have even more clubs this year. And I think part of this has been so fun because they are more and more student initiated clubs. So I think I've met with at least five who come to me with their idea. So now we have a Magic the Gathering club. We have a Pokemon club. Then we have one that's just getting started. Oh, just the other day, it's not even up there because it hasn't started. They said they wanted to do a writing club, but as they described it, it was like a creativity club. So they want to create games and art. And I said, well, what kind of supplies? And they said, probably just some paper and maybe some markers. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. Go for it. Let's create. So having them, and they're making appointments with the secretary, and then they come and meet with me, and then they propose their club idea. So that's been just a really fun thing. Also, we have some, I want to say the chess club is also a parent volunteer initiative. We've had more parent volunteers this year. Like we've quadrupled it because I think we only maybe had one last year. And so now that we have like 6 or 7, it feels like amazing. As well as our, OBOB. We're starting OBOB, which I don't know if Talent Middle School's done OBOB for a while. And that's fully a parent who's just on fire about making that happen. So that's been really great. Oh, OBOB is Oregon Battle of the Books. So it's a club, it's an activity, it's a competition where there's 16 different novels that the kids read, and you have to read it like very detailed. And then there's a study packet that's like this big binder, and you study the books and study the books and study the books. And then when the competitions come, they ask very specific questions about, in what book was she wearing a green dress when she talked to who so-and-so. And then you have to know the book so much that you can answer these really under pressure questions. So kids get really into it. And then we also have we have 7 different student affinity groups happening weekly. So that's been really great to have that as a way of student connection as well. Quick other highlights, our family engagement continues to expand. We did a huge outreach around registration. We really got everybody either registered, or if they weren't going to be with us, we knew that before the start of the year, and we made hundreds of phone calls to really nail that down before the actual first day of school. We've had a lot of really positive meetings with parents this year and kind of helping set the standards and help families understand why that's important for us in terms of a kind, respectful environment. We've already had 2 parent nights that both had great attendance. We're doing our newsletters still. We're about to do our student-led conferences. And like I said, just more parent volunteers. So that's exciting to see the interest. Our community leadership classes have done some great activities already as well, and kind of dovetailing with messages of positivity. We have more lunchtime activities because of all the clubs, and then just a real significant decrease in the hate speech and hate symbols that from a year ago when I first started and those first couple months of school. That was a message and a kind of a limit that we set very strongly. The district obviously has supported that hugely with our reporting bias incident structure at this point. But just for me, that's been a huge decrease in the referrals that are coming in around that this year so far. And less vandalism overall, so that we had a little bit in the bathrooms, but overall it's been better than last year. And some other highlights, some more like development things. There's a lot. Sometimes it feels like maybe too much, but we're trying to develop a lot of things. We have a student success team in place, which is kind of our type of data team, bringing together I think there's 8 or 9 of us, and we meet on a weekly basis. And that's been a really good think tank for me and for the team to think about data and how we can use that more regularly and in what ways. We have a more regular attendance team meeting. Like I said, restorative justice. We're trying to make some subtle but powerful grading changes when it comes to equity in grading and how we can support our students through our grading process rather than sort of make them feel like they've failed and there's nothing they can do. So if there's a book by Joe Feldman that's really, really well written, and just helps us think about some of those kind of structural things that can hold our kids down. And so by changing just even sort of the calculation and how we're giving, if you've never heard of don't give any zeros, it's a little complicated, but the research shows that can be the thing that for students, when we give them zeros, basically this grade scale is weighted against them, 0 to 60, right? Like a 0, all of a sudden that's going to mathematically weigh against you for a long time. And so bringing that up to basically missing assignments are 50, and then you're kind of in the scale where you can still catch up once you turn things in. And we have a little bit of reading intervention FTE in place this year. And then the other thing, we put in a more improved, I'm going to say, but a little also stricter cell phone expectation this year, where the cell phones are supposed to be locked in their lockers away throughout the school day. And we have found that that's been really, really helpful for our teachers and both less behavior referrals around social media and cell phone stuff happening, as well as just less distraction in general in the classrooms. And so the teachers advocated for this. Last year, we weren't supposed to hear them or see them, but this year they're away throughout the school day. So it's worked overall though. Next up. This one I just want to point out because I remember Rick last year. I know it was kind of shocking, our behavior, when you said, right? You said, oh my gosh, what happens when they get to middle school? Well, in middle school, we do have a lot of kids who are pushing the boundaries and trying to figure out where those boundaries are. And for me, it's about having teachers that are creating a strong, organized routine container where kids understand where the boundaries are. And usually when we're explicit and we teach them, then they do work within those boundaries. But we do have to teach them and then be consistent in enforcing them. So the large majority of students are doing really well. This piece of data I thought was really powerful. Allison got it organized for us. We have had 210 behavior referrals. as of, from the first day of school until now. But that's a 39% reduction compared to last year. So at this point, last year we had 353 referrals. And referrals are things that come in usually from teachers or staff members where they said, a student has taken it too far, or I've tried a couple of things, but this, student is continuing to do this thing. And that's even, I will say, with our new cell phone rule, which even that, we had a number of kids, there was referrals coming in after teachers were saying, well, this kid, I gave him 2 or 3 reminders, I called home, and now I want some help. So even with kind of a one rule that we increased, we have dramatically less referrals so far this year. We have the large majority, 78% of our kids don't have a single referral, and 14% only have one referral, which 3 months into middle school, if you have one referral, you're doing pretty good. So that's 92% of our kids who are really in that very green zone when we look at our PBIS triangle. And then we have, that's okay, 21 students do have 2 or 3 referrals. Again, you think about over 3 months, about 1 a month. It's not terrible. We want a little room for improvement. And then it's really kind of this small pocket of students who are still, 3% are still kind of, we're continuing to support them to understand what it means to be a positive community member here at Talent Middle School. Then this is a very different statistic. So it's really apples and oranges. You don't have to think about referrals at this point. But these are the kind of the more serious incidents that do happen at middle school. We do have sometimes physical incidents. We do have students who might have drugs or alcohol on campus, right? And those are more serious incidents. Or we have some students who chronically, there's a behavior that's so chronic that we have to take it up to kind of our most serious intervention. And so, there's basically 32 different students have had a suspension of some kind, maybe a half day or a full day suspension today because of some of their behaviors. But 93% of our students have had 0 state reportable incidents, which really is a synonym for suspensions. We don't do expulsions, would be the other state reportable incident, but we don't do that unless, and then anyway, so again, but it's only 16 students who have 2 or more. So oftentimes when maybe something goes wrong, they do have something they shouldn't have at school. They maybe are suspended for a day because of that, but then they don't repeat that. But we have about 3% of our students who are still really working with to understand how to be safe and respectful and responsible on campus. Okay. So how can you help? I know you all want to know that. I guess for me, it's, understand that change is complex. So for, I felt like when I came in last year, there was just a lot of things that I wanted to improve, and trying to, you got to just pace. I have to pace it, right? I want to improve everything. But sometimes change is complex. Oftentimes people don't want to change. And there is kind of deep history at Talent Middle School. There's a lot of teachers who've been there a long time, which is great. They're dedicated and devoted. But they oftentimes, even some of the smallest things can feel like a lot of a big ask. And so understanding that complexity, understand that teachers are still recovering. I think they would appreciate kind of me recognizing this. I think still from COVID, still from getting back, still from changes in administration at Talent Middle School over the last number of years. A number of them, they feel tired and they feel like they're kind of recovering still. So we're trying to get people feeling energized again. And I think in general, just promoting that kindness and respect are essential, which of course you do, but just knowing that so much of, especially that behavior support that we're trying to do at the middle school level, is so that students feel safe and supported at school. And so when kids aren't being kind or they're not being respectful, that impacts a lot of other students and the teachers as well. And so for me, wanting to create a middle school that feels kind and respectful is so essential. And I think, there are kids who come to us even as 6th graders and still have not really learned that self-awareness of pushing people or taking people's stuff or getting people's stuff or saying mean things really, really impacts people's ability to feel safe. So that, supporting that kind of limit setting and knowing that that's our perspective as we're trying to help kids learn and grow so that they can be positive community members. I'd love to invite you to join us for our lunchtime activities. Anyone who plays chess or OBOB, if you want to come study with them, or the library is just or the Magic the Gathering Club, right? But it's a nice time. We've had the chess mom who volunteered. There's now another dad who lived across the street. He's coming to volunteer for chess too. So you're very welcome to join us. Let me know if you want to know the times. If you want to come and be a guest speaker and speak about kindness, you're invited to. We're doing these meetings with the principals. So if you want to just come and talk about why kindness is important, you're invited. I know it's a big ask. Or if you come across a good video, like a little short video about kindness or something that you think, oh my gosh, middle school kids this might resonate with middle school kids. I would love that because I want to just show them more opportunities to see why it's important that we think about how we interact with others. And the last one was just encourage. And, if you think of anybody in the community who might want to be a classified substitute, even just once a month, we would take it, right? And for me, I think, oh, that could be a cool way to be involved in your community if you were looking for a little part-time gig. But right now we're getting better with certified subs. We're getting more subs for our certified positions mostly. But classified, when we have classified people out, then it just means there's less adults on campus. And pretty much every day we have at least 2 or 3 vacancies like that. So if you know anybody, please encourage them. I think that's it.
Questions, comments? No emotional outbursts, though. Only kindness. No, I'm just kidding.
You ruined my plan.
Oh, dang it.
Dang, I was about ready to yell. Not really. So a couple of things. I love that empathy and belonging are major goals of the school, because I think a lot of times we kind of forgot about empathy, and then us as adults complain about the kids not being there not being empathy there. And so I think it's really important. I think it's something that's missed in education. So I thank you for that. I love the idea of getting people in, because a lot of times we see that, I don't know what's going on in the school. So I like that you're inviting people in and you're inviting parent volunteers. I think that's a tough transition, going from being a classroom volunteer from kindergarten to 5th grade, and then they go to 6th grade. I know it was for me, and they're like, we don't want parent volunteers anymore. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? So I'm glad that you have changed that very much. My question is, and this is something that has been a challenge for me, and it may not be a challenge anymore, but when my sons were in school, they used cell phones a lot for supports of their disabilities. And that was one thing when I first started, in probably Keenan was in kindergarten, that was a lot of supports on an iTouch. He could have, sometimes he couldn't communicate very well, so we'd have to have a touchpad, and sometimes he would need tools of a timer to breathe. And there was his phone is full of tools, and it still is at 19. So my question is, that was great when he was in school, because it wasn't odd for having tools, and he has auto processing, so he could take pictures of notes, and his cell phone was like a tool that helped him so much. So how does that work when cell phones are no longer an option in class? Because I know we had one teacher wouldn't allow cell phones, and it caused problems all the time, because they're like, well, Keenan can have it because he's using it for whatever. So how does that work? I guess that's my question.
We do still use technology at Talent Middle School. We're not anti-technology, but we do a lot more, like Chromebooks are in all the classrooms, and we do have a lot of tools, calculators, different tools like that. We still want students to engage with technology for sure. We've just found that letting kids kind of at middle school age in particular, it might be different at high school. They have really good discipline, I'm sure. And we all as adults, right? We know when to not pick up our cell phone. But at middle school in particular, it can be very challenging for our students to make a good choice about when to use it, when not to. That said, we do have a number of students who have accommodations or can access their device if they do have medical needs. But you're right, kids have to understand, like, well, that's because they have a special plan, and we just help them understand that. So I agree, there are some, it's very valuable for certain kids, and we need to have those exceptions for sure. But I would say the large majority of our students, it's helping them to be a lot more present and focused in the class during instructional time. In a way that there's a great article actually that I'd be happy to send a link. They just did some research on the number of notifications that students who are on a lot of social media sites are getting if it is on their body, and that it's just, I mean, in the hundreds, I can't remember if it's hundreds or thousands a day, but it's definitely striking when you see it. You're like, oh, and we as adults, maybe we're getting them too, but maybe we're able to phase it out. But our kids at that age, it's just takes them away so frequently. But yeah, for me, it just feels like the cost benefit.
Okay, that was just a question because I know there's some kids that they need those supports,
Yeah.
and so I don't want them to feel, because they maybe already feel different, and so I wouldn't want them to feel different more.
Yep.
And this is a side note. Each year, Anna Redding does an experiment in her class with cell phones, and it is like so eye-opening, even to the kids. My kids like, someone is getting a notification every 28 seconds. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That seems like they must like every single thing in the world. So I
And
mean,
at this age, they
seriously.
do. At this age, they like it all,
28
everything. I'll take it all.
He's like, well, their mom texted him 42 times. I'm like, that's a lot. So in one class hour, that's a lot. So anyways, I think that that's interesting, and I think that's good, a way to teach kids, because then they can see it themselves versus, and I'm not saying you have to, but I know for high school kids, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it. And so it's a good note, because they're not always going to put your cell phone away, and they might start doing jobs. And I think it's good to teach kids how to self-regulate as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's the discipline, right? We all have to, if we all decide whether we're going to develop that discipline or not around our devices. And so at middle school, we're just helping still support that, I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to say, and I should have said this when we were at the middle school last time, that I noticed the different signage that seems to be around the school. It just looks a little bit more inviting and engaging. And so I just want to say thank you to who's ever part of making the decision to, we have been to trainings that talked about what message are you sending when you walk up to the door of a school. And I noticed the last time that I was there that it just came off as more of a welcoming space. So
thank you.
All right. In the data that you showed, it said that 95% of students got free lunches. Where does the other 5% go?
100% of the students, because we hit the threshold, everyone qualifies for a free lunch and a free breakfast. So everybody qualifies, but I think, and I actually, I guess that number just shows how many actually hit the threshold of that. But everybody, once you're at a certain threshold, which is even much lower than 95%, then your whole school is able to access that. Yep.
Checking.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the presentation. And I really appreciate and respect the work you've done at the school in the last year and a quarter around culture and kindness. I can tell that it's making a difference from things I hear and also things I don't hear. I want to thank you for that, because, I think sometimes we lose sight of how important culture is in a school environment, and especially in middle school. Not just our middle school, but it's funny, invariably when people will talk to me about something wrong with a school, a lot of times it's a middle school, and I'm like, well, you realize middle schoolers go to these middle schools, right? That's a challenging age, and I appreciate that you recognize that and that you're building culture around that. On your referrals, the internal referrals, do you keep track of demographics on those and disaggregate that?
Yes, we have the ability to. Yep.
Okay.
And that's some of the work that data team has really been starting to dig into a little bit more. And yeah, it is.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Good. And then on the classified subs, is that through the ESD? Okay, great. Because I can think of some people in some Facebook comment sections that I'm going to invite to come and serve as classified subs. So thank you for that information too. Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, high school.
Good evening, everyone. Kaylin Cross, proud principal of the pirate ship. I'm just waiting for my slides. I actually have two awesome people who are going to help me tonight because I don't know if you know this, but Dave is here a lot and he makes all of us look really, really good. So he's going to talk a little bit. And then also Erica has been doing a lot of work on a lot of different systems. So she's also going to help me present tonight, just so you know. I think that is the right there. Perfect. Well, you could skip this one. Great. All right. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about who we are, our pirate priorities. I'm going to talk to you about what we've developed as our anchored in learning, our distributed leadership model that we've dived into this year, and how you can help us, and then an opportunity for any questions. Here is one look at our demographics. I'll just give you a few seconds to look at that, pointing out that our student enrollment is around 670. And then similar to what Catherine said, we have about 50% of students who identify as white, and then a great percentage of students who identify as students of color. And so we are really proud of those numbers as well. We're really proud of our 95% graduation rate. And we want to point out these other numbers as well, including that we have 6 languages spoken on campus, which is something we're really proud of as well. We also have been working really hard with the assistance of Kelly and Monique to make sure that we're able to bring some more diversity and opportunities for belonging for our students onto our campus. I want to point out that we have been able to have 2 affinity and alliance clubs stay on our campuses the last couple of years. Our multicultural club, who actually threw our homecoming dance, which was a great, wonderfully inclusive dance that just really set the tone for our school year, and our BSU, who is also taking on some leadership roles. We also have a lot of student created clubs. We have a Disney club who might be asking for some trips to Disney here pretty soon. They're feeling really empowered, and more than 25 other clubs, and we're growing every day. I'm going to throw it over to Dave.
Thank you, Kaylin. Something we're working on a lot is our culture that surrounds our activities. And acronyms are huge in a school setting. So here's one I created recently, and that B, better every day. So I talked earlier tonight to our winter sports families. If you can improve 1% a day over the course of a sports season, where are you going to be? Can you really do that consistently? We're not sure, but just that idea, because a lot of times kids or anyone will say, well, I'm no good at that yet. They won't say the yet piece, and that's where we're really working with kids. What will you do if you came and devoted 2 hours of time to whatever? So that's really something we're working on. And those 4 words there, just broke it down into, we've got acronyms all over. Like I said, we've got pirates and all the different letters. Well, these are 4 words that really resonated with me during the fall season. And if we can be those 4 things, we'll be pretty good. Strong. That's a huge one. We've talked to our kids about the weight room. But there's other ways to get strong. But just we had 183 kids in fall sports, 87 were enrolled in weights and fitness. That's good, but it's not good enough to really get competitive where we want to be. Respectful. Last year, we had 5 ejections during the fall sports season. And if you know soccer at all, it's really easy to get ejected from a soccer game. This year, we had 1. So that was a big deal. It's a real big initiative through the OSA, and we took that really seriously. So we're really pleased with that. That kind piece, okay? Every one of our fall sports programs did a community service project, at least 2 hours. We served at the Ashland Food Bank. We helped at the drama. We had kids in the crowd there, so we had big crowds at that. Our volleyball kids put on a 3-week camp. Cross country supported at the middle school. Cheer did a ton of things around the school. So we want our kids to learn to give back, where it's transformational rather than transactional. Instead of them saying, well, do I get a Dutch card for this? Or do I get pirate points for this? And all that kind of stuff. We really want to learn that. And that's something we're started to move the needle that way. So here's some fairly real-time data about our fall season. See that picture there? And that's downstairs in the gym lobby. 35 kids last year with 3 sport athletes, which we're really pleased with. We always talk about the idea of having different coaches, different voices, not doing the same thing. Right now, there's a big epidemic. I'll call it epidemic, probably not really that. But in the world, girls are retiring from sports at 12 years old. Okay. A lot of kids get burned out from the whole club thing. And for some kids, yeah, the club thing in one sport. And, but the idea of you're not going to college unless you get a college scholarship for sports, that is so hollow and so inaccurate. More kids go on academic scholarships than they ever do for sports. A lot of times a school, at a baseball school, they'll split 20 scholarships between 55 kids. So everybody gets like a third of a scholarship. So it's, again, when we're trying to work with our parents to understand too, that that's not the route. You're going to get there by being a great student. And that last piece, I'll just back up here a second. One piece I missed, the on-time piece. We talk to kids about being on time. If you can do that, that's a transferable, employable skill. We still struggle with getting kids from point A to point B, even though our campus is not that large, but we continue to work on that. So anyways, like I said, 221 kids in the fall sports season, 145 of them had a 3.0 GPA or better in the first quarter of the school year. So we're really pleased with that. This fall, we celebrated the fact that we played JV football for the first time in 4 years. We had a 3rd boys soccer team for the first time that I ever remember. Cheer program doubled in size, 23 girls and 20 girls and 3 boys right now in our cheer program. Last year, we finished the year. We had limped through the year, cut cheer about halfway through because the kids lost interest. We had 5 cheerleaders. So that program has really grown. Anybody who knows about band and marching band and color guard had an incredible season. Our color guard is probably our fastest growing group. Middle schoolers are growing, getting interest in color guard, and at the high school level too. So a lot of really good things. And like I said, our fall sports programs, every one of them completed an in-season community service project. So they're learning how to give back. So it's all those pieces. And we see our facility tonight was a good example of a facility that is well used. We started practices at 4 o'clock today. We had cheer, wrestling, and boys and girls basketball finish at 6. At 6, we started a parent sports meeting down there. We started a band concert. We started wrestling club, and we started this meeting. So again, we thank the community for its wonderful support, and we'll just keep running those events. So, Erica?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I want to give you a quick glimpse into our data. I've already said this, but I'll say it again. Our 2023 school year, we ended with a 95% on-time graduation rate. That is because our staff works really, really hard and our kids respond to our caring adults. And so it's easy for me to stand here and say I'm so proud of that, but our staff works so hard to partner with the kids and families to make that happen. At the end of this quarter, I have a couple of stats I want to share with you. Our seniors on track is about an 85% right now. That's pretty standard in the fall. Out of our 149, 127 of them are on track. 22 of them are not. And so you'll see a breakdown of the interventions that we have in place. You'll notice that the numbers there don't add up to 22, and it's because some kids are in multiple interventions. Our sophomore on track, which was our freshman on track rate from last spring, I'm sure you noticed, wasn't our most proud moment or statistic, but we are paying a lot of attention to that. It's currently at about 72%, and we have done a lot of very intentional work, including adding a lead grad coach to make sure that they are really prioritizing how to do interventions for that sophomore class. Including an addition of a Wednesday school. So since we are out early, students are staying to do credit retrieval opportunities and studying really hard. And so that is just one of a lot of attention we're giving to our sophomores. And then our freshman on track rate is 87% right now. And that's pretty normal in the fall. Again, just really making sure we're tapping into interventions, including a lot of grad coach meetings, and a lot of early communication with families about what it means to be on track and what that looks like each quarter instead of waiting until the end of the school year to say you are or you're not. So that's just a little bit of our data. I am going to throw it over to Erica to talk about our pirate priorities.
Thank you. Good evening, board. So in terms of this year, we are continuing to focus on fine-tuning some systems that support all of our students, student behavior support, attendance and tardies, and family engagement. In terms of attendance and tardies, I'm working on updating attendance procedures, looking through some of the things that are working, not working. One of the employability skills, as we know, we need kids to go to work on time. And so we've implemented some things around tardy sweeps where we have staff that help us get kids from point A to point B. And those have been highly effective. We started with about 53 tardies like the first day that we started this, and we landed with 10 tardies by the end of the week. And so it drastically went down. Looking and reviewing data around IDTs and kids who are on interdistrict transfers, being able to support kids to up their attendance as well, and changing the way that we notify families, not just via email, but by text message at every period that their student is absent so that they also are notified, which is something completely new. Supporting this caring adult and connection, using our grad coaches intentionally around that. And a huge shout out for our community partners that support us in removing some barriers once we identify them in attendance meetings with families. So La Clinica has been in the medical and supporting us with mental health by the addition of some new mental health supports through La Clinica, Maslow, and other community care specialists that we have on our campus. So that has been really supportive in those systems. We also have an attention around having the right people in the right spaces, managing the right things. Kaylin's going to address some of the comprehensive school counseling work that has been done and continues to be done. We have a full menu of students' resources and supports for our students, everything from the counseling staff to our grad coaches, which we now have 3 more mental health supports, and our migrant ed mental health support on campus. And we continue to do lots of intentional progress monitoring to support all of our students. So bi-weekly meetings, we started diagnostic testing for all students in math and English so we can see where they're at, credit retrieval, our alternative programs, Compass, PTVA, our virtual version, and hybrid options for students. So those are lots of things that we've been working on and fine-tuning some of those systems. And lastly, our family engagement work. We continue to do work with Sherry Wilson and using the data that we got last year around family engagement and some of the changes that we need to institute to support that. Dave talked a little bit about it, but we are a community gathering place. PHS hosts a lot of activities in athletics, homecoming, and we are super anxious to get families in the door and working with us. Work to Be Well, Fall Carnival, like the list can go on ages on things that we do that we bring the community in to be a part of. So we're always looking for more ways to add more community and more family in through those front doors. So back to Kaylin.
All right. So last year we talked about how those 3 priorities exist to support the magic that happens in classrooms, and that is that we're all about teaching and learning. Last year I also started using this phrase that we're shifting from logistics to learning, and I think that has been really apparent in everybody's presentations, that we're not just talking about what doors are we going to enter, how much space do we need from each other, but what are we learning and how are we spending our time in our classrooms. So last year I also showed you this slide. It talked about what I wanted to do as far as instruction. And so where are we 1 year later? Well, we did a collaborative process over the course of several months in the spring where we talked with our staff about what great teaching and learning is. We talked about how we don't send our kids to any other place that they have to go 5 days a week all the time. School is the only place that we require our kids. So how are we making sure that it's an excellent experience for them? And this is what our staff came up with. Rigor and relevance, engagement, behaving to learn, celebrating successes, making sure the adults are learning and that they are, you know, in getting the top PD they can, and making sure our families are engaged. And so all of that, our professional development and our goals are anchored around these anchors of learning. And we're using them also to start developing a criteria of what practices should look like when we walk into classrooms. Where are we seeing these things in action, and what does that actually look like? And that's a collaborative effort. We also got an instructional coach. We're new to that. PHS, this is our first year, and we identified 4 buckets that our instructional coach would be focusing on. PLC work, you can see some of the things under that umbrella. Professional development comes from those anchors of learning. Culture of coaching, you know, being coached and having a coach is a whole culture, and it takes a while sometimes for us as teachers to be open to another adult in our classroom. And also equitable practices around grading. Shauna mentioned that for a long time in our district, we really value autonomy, which we do, but also there's a place for us to have collaborative conversations for the sake of equity for students and for families. So that's what our instructional coach has been working on. So we've been doing this for about 3 months. And these are all the things that she has been working on and that we would say she's been very effective with. Mostly I'd like to point out that we're doing a lot of curriculum mapping, which sounds really boring, but it's actually a way that we're having really awesome equity conversations about what we're teaching and making sure that we're teaching on standard for our students. We also are working on a comprehensive school counseling program. We know that, and we believe that kids do well if they can. That's a quote from Dr. Ross Green. And so we've talked to our counselors about what our priorities are. And those are in these 4 areas. Last spring, we had the opportunity to go to a training called Hatching Results, and that focuses on a comprehensive school counseling program. And so you'll see right here this kind of pyramid a little bit. Essentially, there are 3 domains: an academic domain, a college and career domain, and a social emotional domain. And then it's cut into 3 spots: a tier 1, which means everybody gets this, a tier 2, which means some people get this, and then a tier 3, which means a fewer people get this and it's more targeted. So we've been working on that, and we've been also talking about this babies in the river parable, which I'm going to tell you. I know I'm going to go long. Sorry, friends. So once upon a time, there were these 3 people. They were taking a jaunt during their lunch break down by the river. They looked over and they saw all of these babies in the river. Don't worry, the babies are okay. But they were like, oh my gosh, there are babies in the river. And 2 of the friends like jump into the river and they're like bailing all these babies out, right? And they see each other and they're like, where's our 3rd friend? What the heck? Right? So they finally get all the babies out. They're like resting on the bank of the river, holding the babies and shushing the babies. And their friend walks down the road. And they're like, dude, where did you go? We were saving all these babies. And their friend says, yeah, I saw that there are all these babies in the rivers. And I thought to myself, how are the babies getting in the river? So I ran upstream and I looked and I saw that at daycare, they left the baby gate open and the children just ran and jumped into the river. So I closed the gate so that you guys didn't have to spend so much time in the middle of the river pulling all the babies out. All of that to say, the babies are safe and everybody's fine. But oftentimes as school counselors and in education, we spend a lot of time just trying to get the babies out of the river, when really what we need to do is send some friends upstream to look at like where are the babies coming from, closing that gate while also saving the babies that are already in the river. And that's applicable not just in school counseling, but that is kind of the idea of this comprehensive school counseling program. And we have dived headfirst into that work, and we're really proud of our counselors and our academic advisor for that work. This is a lot of words for me to show you that this is kind of our this year plan for our comprehensive school counseling program. It involves that really strong tier 1, which is the services that every student should get. We're 3 months in. This is where we're at. It's very intentional. We're educating all of our staff about what a school counselor actually does and why that's important. And we're talking a lot about babies and rivers. The last thing I want to tell you about is our distributed leadership teams. We have done had a lot of conversation about climate and culture of buildings. We talk a lot about how the grass is always greener on the other side, but we always know that the grass is actually greener where you water it. So we had a conversation last spring about what grass needed to be watered at PHS to make us acknowledge that the grass was greener here. And what that looked like was taking responsibility for the climate and culture of our building. So I asked staff, what do you want to work on? What do you feel like your time would be most valuable spent on? And they came up with these groups: student support systems, having some teacher voice in that, advisory, which is where we do a lot of our comprehensive school counseling lessons, attendance team, they were seeing a need for that. Legacy and spirit, we want to have fun. We want people to be proud of graduating from Phoenix High School and what that means and what those traditions are. Family engagement, staff wellness and fun, because that matters. Adult learning, and new staff support. How are we retaining and supporting the staff that we're bringing on board? And so we have taken leaders for each of those groups to the Art of Coaching Teams workshop with Elena Aguilar. And that's awesome because we need more leaders in our school so that not one or two people are making the decision. And so I'm excited to keep you updated on that work. Again, these priorities exist so that we can have matching in classrooms and teachers can do the best work, because we send our kids to schools every day and they're required to be here. So we need to make sure that we're giving our students the best. So what could we use from you? Well, we love that you show up and support our kids. We love seeing you on campus. Please continue to do that. We love that you ask questions and you're curious about things. Please continue to do that. Please continue to allow student voice and choice in things. I got to take our 4 student reps to the OASC conference, and it makes me like teary to talk about. We have great students who have insights that a lot of us could really use their insights, and they need more opportunities. And so I just say, let's continue to grow that if we can. And then I'd like to ask you to consider conversations around grading. Again, talking about that autonomy in classrooms. But I really see a need, and we've been talking a lot about equitable grading practices that could be captured in policy or even could just be talked about in bigger groups that involve our teachers and our staff, because they're impacting students and families. And we want to make sure, we're so focused on equity in a lot of ways, but I think grading is one of the areas that we could expand our equity lens. Any questions?
Great presentation. Thank you. I just want to say, I remember when you were, when staff was going through the hiring process for you, and one of the things that I heard was that they could really see you in the leadership role, interacting with students in our building and our community, which is important, obviously, in creating culture. And then as a board member, it's important, right? And so I just want to say thank you personally when I emailed you about including student reps in the leadership conference. I really appreciated your auto respond, recognizing that sitting in front of the computer in your desk, at your desk,
my auto response.
to say to support teaching and learning. I'm not sitting here answering this email all day. I will get to you, but this will be the time span when I do it. And so I just, at first I thought, oh, and then I was like, a great autoresponder. So I wanted to give you public kudos for that and for really keeping the main thing, I guess is really kind of where we're at. And then the comprehensive counseling was super interesting because Polly and I just went to a workshop. This is what happens when we come back from OSB, and we're like, oh, I understand actually what some of those things are. Oh my goodness. So kudos to OSBA conference for that. So it's a Division 22 standard. And really looking at tier support and how we as a board can potentially help with that, so that, it's aligned, and the way that data is measured is aligned between the different tiers, so you're not doing one thing in one tier and another thing in another to create things. So whatever we can do to support that work, and motivational interviewing. Hadn't heard of that. And so I'm really super excited about learning about what motivates us to do the things that we do. So anyway, it was great. Just had to share the good stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, Dave does work harder than all of us.
Noted.
We kind of think in the same way, that's for sure. Could you speak a little bit about Compass and what it is and how it plays out here in school?
Yeah. I could do a whole presentation on Compass. It's so special. So we have an alternative program called Compass, and it kind of has two different components. Actually, I'd say three components. Compass itself is where students can work both on campus a couple of half days a week and also do their coursework at home. The idea is that some students need more flexibility because they work or because of their family structure. Maybe they are pregnant or parenting and they need that structure. So those students come to that program. It also is a way for us to keep some students on campus who maybe might want to try ATI or sorry, not ETI at some point. But we want to see if we can retain them and keep them and if we can still serve them on our campus. They're part of PHS 100%. And Mindy Torelli is our amazing brand new alternative teacher, and we love her. We also have a virtual academy. We struggle with naming it Compass Plus, PTVA, Anchors Away Academy. We're playing around with some things, but those students are 100% virtual, and they do have the opportunity if they need to come on campus. But Mindy does some case management with them. She does once a week Google Meet check-ins to just track their progress. And then we have some students who are doing some hybrid things. So an example is we might have a student who's very involved in ag, right? And we want that student to come on campus and do some hands-on experiences or be able to, serve in, their officer position or something, but they also might need some flexibility. So we have been piloting kind of a hybrid program where a student can take 1 or 2 classes on campus as well as do that work virtually. Does that explain it?
About how many folks are we serving? And I was going to ask that.
Yeah. It changes quite a bit. I think our number right now is around 70 students total.
Wow, and we only have one person in there?
Yeah.
Doing all that?
Yes.
That's a
If
lot.
you think though, a typical teacher manages around 180
Right.
students.
But these might be more high level needs, some of them?
Some
maybe?
of them,
Okay.
some of them less need because it's just a check-in and they're kind of on their parents are more involved. Maybe they've been homeschooled in the past. So yeah, the need changes.
Yeah. So yes, we went to the counseling. This is my second or third session at OSBI conference for the comprehensive counseling because Michelle Carlson turned me on to that group, and Jean Egan is leading that presentation, who is managing part of that program, implementing it throughout the state. And he would like to come to our area, and maybe you invite other high schools and they could all meet here to help develop those programs. And they're starting the training soon, which is pretty exciting. So I am really excited about that because it's going to be leveling up what we're doing now and making it applicable to those standards, and also more accountability and a unified program throughout the state, which is really exciting, I think.
Well, just so you know too, we're not just doing that at PHS. That's also happening at TMS, and Kelly is supporting that work. So it is a district initiative or district thing that we're doing.
And where do you think that we can improve through the high school with our parental engagement or the community engagement? How could we better improve in that area?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different facets because, different strokes for different folks or whatever they say. Some of it is just making sure that when students are coming over to us from 8th grade or becoming freshmen, that we are really inviting and that we offer some opportunities for parents to maybe ask questions or get engaged away from their students. We find that a lot of times students who are teenagers are like, "Mom, go away." Or they're embarrassed by their parent. And so being able to offer opportunities where our students are engaged with each other doing, you know, like peer kinds of things, and we can separate and just talk to parents so they feel more comfortable. We're working a lot on our spring engagement for that, because once we kind of get them in, they feel more comfortable. And then I think too, just the way we communicate. We had a lot of great results on our surveys for family engagement last year. And that was because we did like at Facebook, Instagram, in person, on paper, and we just really tried to meet parents in a variety of areas. And I think just being transparent about our needs, like, hey, we need you on here on campus, or hey, we love to hear your opinion, and then showing them how we're using that. Like, hey, we used your information or your opinion, and this is how it has applied to what we're doing. Yeah, I think we could also be better about like not just inviting people in, but going where they are. That's intimidating and also vulnerable, but it is something that we could do better.
Thank you for all you do.
No questions.
Hello? Hello? Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote them down. So I have quite a lot of questions, obviously, because I'm in high school. My first question is, when you were showing the statistics about the classes that are on track for graduating, you didn't show juniors.
Yep.
And I'm a junior, so I was just
Yeah.
kind of curious
So-
on that.
Yeah, so typically, because our board goals or our strategic plan measures freshmen on track and seniors on track, typically I would only show freshmen and seniors. We keep track of everybody, but I just share that information because that's something that we're paying a lot of attention to. I included sophomores this year because last year, at the end of the year, it wasn't super successful for them. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that we were paying attention to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then my next question is, Mr. Earhart talked a lot about how people involved in sports had a lot of opportunities to like be involved in the community and all that. So my question was, is there opportunities like that for people who don't do sports? Because there's a lot of people who don't like sports aren't their jam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there anything like that that is given to them like the same amount as people who do sports?
Yeah, I think sometimes in high schools, it's really common for us to focus on athletics, and Mr. Earhart is the athletic director, so that's kind of his lens. But yeah, we do that through a lot of activities, clubs, and making sure kids can develop any clubs that they want, and activities. So like drama, marching band, color guard, leadership, link crew, work to be well, all of those things. So the idea is making sure that students have voice, and when we like catch on to a glimmer of something that students are interested in, we make that a thing. So we could be better about that.
Wait, sorry, I have so many questions. My next question is, I know from personal experience and like a couple of my friends, and a lot of people in the school, there's a lot of like issues with drugs and alcohol use. So my question with that is there any like help given to them? Because the most of the time I hear about things like this, it's like they get suspended or they get like things like on that track, but I don't really hear about them getting the help that they need to get away from that.
Yeah.
So that was one of my
That's a great question. So there are kind of like two ways that we are able to kind of deal with things. One is like the student management perspective. So if there's like a safety concern for other students, we have to make sure that we're dealing with that. The other perspective is the mental health or the physical health component. So one of our partners that Ms. Ochoa talked about was La Clinica, and we've partnered with La Clinica a lot for both mental health supports, and also we're piloting I don't know what it's called, but like a behavioral health substance like abuse group. So when we find a student who maybe has engaged in that on campus, or maybe has come to a counselor like, hey, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? We're able to refer them to La Clinica, and they're working with a behavioral health counselor to create a plan to like either reduce or hopefully totally get rid of that addiction, or to like figure out how to manage that. And also to figure out if there are other situations that are impacting students so that they're maybe using substances instead of coping in other ways.
And then I guess I have one or two more questions. One of them is Ms. Ochoa talked about like setting the expectation for like jobs and stuff and getting us ready for jobs, but I feel like there's not that many opportunities for us to learn about like outside of life, like how to get a house or any of that kind of stuff. So is there anything like that that I'm just not aware of?
Yeah. Actually, when we were talking about the comprehensive school counseling plan, one aspect of that is like the career and college piece. And that goes above just like college applications or those kinds of things. It has to do with like taxes or credit cards and those things. So life skills. And so one of the things that we're working on through this comprehensive school counseling plan is making sure that there's space in your schedule so that you're learning those things age appropriately. So that when you leave, you know how to do your taxes and not open a credit card.
And then and add on to that, do you know like when that would happen? Because I'm getting real close to graduating, and I would really like to learn before I leave.
Yeah, we can work on implementing some like stuff right away. But as I'm sure you're aware, big things take a while to implement. So something like full scale would take a couple of years, but we can always like partner with community partners. And I think some of, the survey data that we're getting from students through advisory would help us determine where kids need those things.
Okay, that was all mine. So
Perfect.
thank you, and I appreciate all that you guys do. So thank you.
You could borrow mine.
Some of the questions I had, like growing on to what like she said, was the comprehensive school counseling program. I feel like I heard of that like a couple times during the meeting, but just trying to catch up on what you guys are talking about. Like, what is that? Like, what because I heard about like individual counseling and all these like terms, and maybe like I'm not as aware of it.
No, that's okay. So it's making sure that school wide, all students are getting their needs met in a variety of areas. So one is academic. You're like tracking, what do I need to graduate? What academic skills do I need? Where I'm at my reading and math. One is college and career readiness, right? Are you exploring things? Are you having the opportunity to figure out what you want to do after this? And then one is social emotional learning. Like, how's my mental health? Am I able to manage my stress level? Those kinds of things. And actually, the state has decided that that's important for all students in the state. And so they're requiring high schools to implement programs to make sure that's happening. And so that's what essentially a comprehensive school counseling program is.
Yeah. And also like a concern that, or like a question I had about like tardy sweeps when I heard Mr. Cho talk about that.
Not popular.
Is like what do you guys? What is your guys' point of view on like tardy sweeps, and what do you guys like think that you guys like accomplish when you guys like do a tardy sweep? Because I hear a lot of people that will say that they were like 2 minutes or a minute late to their class, and then they end up missing like 20 minutes or like a lot of time from their class because they were down at the office having to call home or something.
Yep. So we don't do them all the time. And we did them a lot when we were first doing them because we wanted to like get people used to them. But the idea essentially is like, hey, there's a reason why you need to be in class on time. And we want to make sure that we're supporting at that. Also, people who can support you that aren't at school are your parents or your families or someone who you live with, right? So sometimes they don't always know all the information. So we want to make sure they know. And the best way to get them to answer the phone is when you call them. So that is the perspective. We want to make sure that students have a sense of urgency, and I'm sure you heard people talk earlier that the amount of time you spend in class, it directly correlates to your achievement. So 1 minute or 2 minutes here every period, right? That's like 14 minutes minimum a day. I'm not good at math, but times that by 5 days, that's a lot of minutes, right? And so we're just trying to make sure you realize you need to be in class because it's an employability skill, and also because we have important things to tell you. But they missed it once and then they never did again.
That's true. And another okay.
Sorry, Javi.
No, you're good. I was just wondering. And before you guys start talking about this, because I don't know if you guys are going to talk about it or not, what is like equitable grading? Because I think that you guys are going to talk about it soon. So I want to know what it is before you guys talk about it.
Yep. Okay, that could be a long answer, which is fine. Yeah, but that was Michael Campbell's question too. So this is a really big subject. So I'll just sum it up like this. Right now, the way we do things is very individualized. So in my classroom, I get to decide what's important and what I'm going to grade you on and how many points it's worth and how many times I'm going to assess it. right? So I'm an English teacher, so maybe I give you one essay, and that's the only essay I give you all quarter. I'm using English because I'm an English teacher. And 80% of your grade is based on that essay. Maybe something happened at home. You didn't finish the essay, or you thought it was boring, or it wasn't great, so you didn't do it. And then because it's worth 80% of your grade, you failed. And then I get to say, well, sorry, Javi, that's awful. You can make it up in credit retrieval. Go do it, right? Maybe someone else has a different English teacher. That English teacher assigns 3 essays. A student does all 3 of those essays. They knock it out of the park, right? They do awesome. Or maybe they do 2 out of 3, but they don't have to do the 3rd one because they already did the other 2, and it mathematically makes it so that they pass. Did you get a fair shot at an English grade compared to that other student? No. That's just like a very simplified way of me saying that because we're able to do whatever we want in our classrooms, it's not necessarily equitable. Not to mention that the way we grade, how we're assigning those things, what standards we're assessing, those things all also have to do with, what grades that students are getting. So some students are taking, 4 courses in credit retrieval when maybe they didn't need to take any because they had a different teacher than someone else. And I lose sleep over that. So that's all.
I knew what it was, but thank you for but I appreciate you bringing this suggestion because that's huge, and I do think we need to take that up. And so my question to you is, what do you I'm not going to ask you what you recommend policy be, because it sounds like you're invited. This is going to have to be a conversation with many stakeholders, but I think it's a conversation we should have. I think our students, when you guys interviewed, we talked about policy, right? And your impact on that. This could be something that you could really sink your teeth into. What is your recommendation for how we get started on that? Because to me, this seems like an urgent thing that we should take up.
I think it is urgent, but I also think in order for it to be something that people buy into, it does have to be very collaborative. And as we all know, that takes time. And teaching is so precious, and it's honoring the professional in the classroom and also honoring students, and that's really delicate. And so my suggestion would be just to start talking about it and invite teachers with a variety of opinions, which will make it even more difficult, into the same space to have those conversations. And I think it would be good for administrators, obviously, to be part of that so we can hear how we can support it at the building. I do think it's very urgent, and I think it's going to be painful, I hate to say that, to do it because it's going to take time.
Could it be something our equity committee could help with?
I'm going to throw that over to Kelly.
Please.
I also think, because I said earlier, it's very, very big and messy. We might want to be like, oh yeah, this is the policy and this is how it works. But as we're having the conversation, we might unpack some other things that have to be done first. And I don't know that all of that is your work or policy at all. I don't even know if policy is the best for the equity grading piece. I just want you to be aware of that. I think that we need to spend some time on that, and we would like your support. I would like your support in that, and I think so would the rest of the administration.
Absolutely. I think we would be in the, staff and students, community members would work collaboratively to come up with a recommendation for the board. But it really struck me. I honestly thought we already had a policy like that on the books. So I think we need to take that up, and I understand it's going to take some time and it's going to be, to use your term, painful, but I think it's worth undertaking. So, and by the way, you're not good at math yet. So still time for you and me. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any closing comments, Mr. Barry?
Yeah, I just want to share that just really proud of this team, and what you see is just really a team that truly has a growth mindset. And you didn't hear a lot of excuses tonight. You heard here's where we are, here's where we're going, and here's how we're going to get there. And it's going to take all of us. So just always love this night and hearing a lot more. In December, our board meeting, we will have Javier kind of unpack this and wrap it up and do a program report on the strategic plan implementation. And you have a good base for that right now. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
I'm grateful for this because Rick and I have been talking. Rick and I have spent a little bit of time together in the last week, which is very important for me as in my own personal way. But Rick shared with me that this is his favorite board meeting in the past. And I want to say that this is my favorite board meeting because I love that we accentuate the positive, but I really, really, really want to hear what the struggle bus is and how we can show up for you as a team, as a board member. And I appreciate your open and honest communication about that, and that it makes me think about things differently. And I'm just really grateful for that in this meeting that we have.
You're here. I think that's a great place to adjourn. Good night, everybody.